Hey, I'm Dragoneel. Welcome back to my Undersea Grotto. Try and name a more divisive game than Mario Kart World. A series as famous as the mainline games themselves, possibly even more so. Having to wait over a decade for the next brand new console Mario Kart game had people believing it was going to be revolutionary, and it was, in all the worst ways. Yeah, it's time to come clean about my thoughts on this game. I was a little let down by it. I simply think the series peaked with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Whatever came after, had it not been the exact same, was going to disappoint me to some degree. But had it been the exact same, it would have been terribly underwhelming. It was a lose-lose situation for the next Mario Kart, unfortunately, because a year ago when World released, it was met with immediate backlash. And can you really blame people? The idea of an open-world Mario Kart was sick, opened up so many possibilities, but forcing the majority of Grand Prix to be driving bland and uninteresting routes between the courses, the new items being some of the middest so far, the god-awful structuring of the game's unlockables and collectibles. You can't really blame anyone for being too upset about it.
I feel like this game died before it even had a chance to live.
But you could normally push all of those gripes aside for the main Mario Kart experience, the track design. That's what people buy these games for, and as time's gone on, I've given less of a shit that I can play as a bat over an actual character like Ludwig von Koopa. Sure, that's not really going to affect gameplay in the grand scheme of things, because the courses you're actually going to race on are the real bread and butter of a Mario Kart. And there's some good here. Unfortunately for me, my main problem with some of these tracks is that since they have to accommodate for being driven on in the open world and the all-new feature of 24 racers at the same time, many of them can just feel a bit empty, less focused than they probably should be. So having sat on the game for a year, well, half a year technically, I was quite late to the party on it, let's rank 'em all! I'm far from the first to do this, but I do feel my takes usually stray from the standard, so we'll see how much you agree or disagree. I'm going to be going through the 30 courses as they appear in the time trials and versus modes, as I feel that's the purest form to digest them in. And with that all out of the way, let's go, my friends. There are two types of people in this world. People that love Koopa Troopa Beach, and me. And certain creatives, I won't name any names, but some creatives will try and convince you that if you don't like this course, you lack any joy and whimsy. To which I say, screw you, I'm full of whimsy. I present under the guise of a Dragoneel. In a game with so many new features, one would assume that every course would include at least one of them. Would be nice, wouldn't it? This is the only Super Mario Kart course to make it into this game, and I'm sure glad it is. It resurrects the good old 5-lap structure from that game because, let's be real, there would be nothing to chew on here if it was only 3. There's a handful of cheap splashing about, not moving, might I say, just up and down. Are they hard to avoid? No. Are they impactful on the race in any way? No. Do I want them gone? Does nothing minus nothing equal better nothing? No. The vibes are good, I'll give it that, because God, it needs something. Alright, I'll get back to the point I made 43 seconds ago. The new features of this game, one of which being over-water driving. No longer do your karts and bikes drive below the surface, they sprout water skis instead, and when there's changes in the water, waves and ripples and whatnot, you can get extra trick boosts off those. Spot the waves? Yep. Calm seas right here. It's like the water's necessary, but with an "un" on the start. Even if you did want to try and use the feature for whatever reason, you little sociopath, you'd be having to drive all the way to the far edge to do so. And since that'll take you all the way to the back of the pack, I just wasted time talking about it. One of the biggest things that irks me about Koopa Troopa Beach though, stupid name by the way, on a KB2's legacy, is that, oh, what a topical tangent! Certain SNES tracks are already in the open world, as tributes. They know there's not enough to work with, so certain P-Switch missions have you race on a small tribute to certain courses, just tucked away like hidden secrets. And many of them are more interesting than Koopa Troopa Beach. Wild! I'd love to go on, truly I would. But there is almost nothing to talk about regarding it. There's ramps, like That's it, that'll have to do. Moving on. Uh-oh, a spooky ghost course. People love those ones, right? Yeah, it's one of those themes that's already at a bit of a disadvantage by the fact that people generally don't like them much. So then why do so many people munch on Boo Cinema like it's the greenest grass in the field? Like KTB, it's got the aesthetic kind of on lock. Particularly when you enter the cinema screen itself. Is it a gimmick? Yes, absolutely, but you gotta admit, it is cool. Like, the first time round. Every time after that, it's alright. You start to realise it doesn't actually make all that much difference. It's not like the whole track goes to black and white, it just kind of darkens a bit. The driving on film tape is very sweet, especially on that one strip that actually moves so you can see the floor playing a small clip. That's adorably neat. This course does also pick up Beach's slack on the features front, with quite a good selection of grind rails. Mostly just along the standard edges with some extra coins for rail riding, but one of them cuts off a bit of a turn. But watch out! There's a behemoth jump scare!
Okay, so the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty spooky. That works, like, the first time around. You're seeing a pattern here. The course is very designed to be awesome for one use, and doesn't really have a lot of return value. Just before we look at the outside of the screen though, one final note. Aspiring game designers, if it's not 100% clear where you're supposed to go in your racing game, you probably went wrong somewhere. At the end of the film reel section, there's a big end of course glide where it's entirely possible that this will happen. And you may think, that guy's an idiot, bad example. But I've made that mistake. Look how wide this gliding area is. It doesn't exactly direct you where you're meant to go. Who's to say you can't ride and jump over the seating area? That leads into one of my big problems with the aforementioned open world nature of this game, across all courses generally. Every course has been designed to be played on both inside and outside of the typical racing experience. Because of this, most areas need to be accessible. Because of this, it's very easy to cross into them during the actual races when they act out of bounds. Take this grind rail for example. I spent so long trying to find the perfect charge jump to get onto this thing, only to be led off the track by taking it. Ridiculous. Now, if you ask me, a big part of a track is the twists and turns of the layout itself. See, I'm a bit of a maps guy myself, alright? Call me Mapaneel. So when we get this late into the game, Leaf Cup course by the way, I expect a little bit of something, you know? Look at this creased bow tie looking ass. You're gonna tell me the beginner track is gonna have a more interesting look than this one? Nah, I'm not buying it. While it's a little bit chill, it has nowhere near enough sauce to make up for that map. Time for a perfectly good course saddled amidst a sea of greatness. Moo Moo Meadows has been a fan favourite and a personal favourite of mine for a long time. In Mario Kart Wii, it was delightfully quaint. It was the perfect middle ground for the selection. In Mario Kart 8, it was all of that and then some. The change to Sunset, the added gliding ramp, the orchestration, it was a perfect remake, I won't lie. So now we bring it back, we widen the track, straighten out some of the curves, Lightning Cup course this time by the way, you just kind of suck all the juice out of it. It's gone back to being about as plain as it was before its makeover. One of the biggest changes to the whole thing is the reshaping of the ground being a bit steeper so you can get more tricks on the straightaways, and I don't blame the boys for doing that. There's a bonus off-road ramp towards the end on the left, and it's just about the most interesting thing this version does, but then what do you expect when you remake a course one game apart? It hasn't had time to simmer. What more can you do? It doesn't incorporate, like, any of the new features either. There aren't rails worth riding on, no water sections or anything like that. Is there anywhere to wall ride? You bet there ain't. To think I'd have less to say about the Moo Moo Meadows than I would Koopa Troopa Beach is insane. Today, pigs did fly. As some might say, my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. Am I gonna have to move on? Like, I'm trying to stall here so I can think of anything else to say, but there's just nothing. There's nothing. Do I really need to explain this one? If anything, maybe people are going to be mad that I put Desert Hills above some of the others here, but let me explain myself. Is this a bad course? Well, it's certainly not great. It is doing something a bit different to its original counterpart, so points for that. But those somethings aren't exactly anything to write home about. There's something to write a YouTube video about. We get an alright obstacle for a Flower Cup course. You see 3 Tokotokos on the side of the first set of winding turns. By lap 2, one of them's charging down towards you, and by the 3rd lap, the rest are on the move. That's a bit of fun. You get to assess the danger in increasing levels before the main test, even if the main test's a piece of piss. I will give this course credit, it's not a completely brain-deadening remake like Meadows. You can at least say this is an evolution of the track instead of a devolution. It's trying some new stuff, namely replacing its abundance of Pokies from the original with Batodons, even if that might be a change for the worse. They're winged creatures up in the sky, and while you will be in the air a lot too during the bumpy section they're stationed in, all this time after and I'm still yet to hit or be hit by them once. Another thing I'll say is it is implementing the new features. It's about time one of you lot did. There are some rails to get onto along the right at the end of the course, granted they are a bit of a hassle to get onto. And there's a small oasis at the starting line. It's not quicker to the average Joe by that much, but it's nice to have that option for advanced players, you know? In fact, the ending of this course is almost what picks it back up. Everyone's had their complaints about how they took out the hills in Desert Hills. What are you talking about? They didn't take them out, they just moved them to the area before. This bit's a lot flatter now, but you've already got the 2 alternate routes I just mentioned, plus this new addition to the left. There's a small split, the closest path to the main road letting you trick for a jump boost, but taking the extra drift around it rewards you with a glide. That's honestly a really good area in an otherwise just mediocre course. You've got about 5 different ways to complete the end of a race. Unfortunately, it's just that the rest of the race was, well, Desert Hills. Okay, this is where things are gonna get wild! Kidding, it's Starview Peak. Everyone hates this one, and while I certainly won't take my feelings that far, it is quite a weak Nitro course. It's not particularly doing anything brand new. I suppose it is introducing us to the big water update in this game, and I will say, it's doing that quite alright. About halfway through the course, you take a giant glide onto this big floating river. Crazy that those are the kinds of sentences you can just say in the Mario universe and no one bats an eye. It looks absolutely stunning, the water effects are incredible, but like, yeah, of course it does. Have you seen this game? The water driving controls very differently to most other surfaces, so the water's nice and wide to give you room to cock up a few times without too much consequence. For those more skilled though, there are some snowflake rings along the left side of it that'll give you a speed boost. Just along from them, you'll find a small off-road snow cut, just after which is a ramp, which further teaches you that landing on water will submerge you just enough to gain an extra trick boost upon bouncing back up to the surface. It's just a taster for what overwater driving will be like, and it's over before it has a chance to get too complex or, honestly, more interesting. The opening of the course borrows from Ice Ice Outpost, a track I absolutely love, but many hate, so you can probably guess how they feel about this. I don't entirely blame them. Maybe it was supposed to just be a small reference and nothing beyond that, but when the road splits in 2, a green side and a yellow side, an intrinsic part of Outpost, it doesn't do anything beyond that. One's infinitely slower than the other, despite the dash panels trying to lure you in, and there's just nothing on them. Not a single snowman, penguin, literally any creature that could have tried to block you on these very long, very straight lanes. From there you go into the water section, and from the end of there you glide back through to the beginning while taking a tiny trip through a big library, and by a tiny trip I mean I didn't notice this was a library the first time I played it. You're in it for a grand total of the amount of seconds to make me not give a shit. I'm sure some Nintendo soys were lapping this bit up because they played Super Mario Galaxy and Rosalina was in that game, and Rosalina had a library, and the building the course takes place around kind of looks like Rosalina's ship, and they're obsessive gimps over her. but I'm able to see through that facade. Is it a fit, or is she just skinny? She's just skinny. Take any reference to Galaxy out of here, and literally nobody would give a flying whoosh about it. Okay, this is where things are going to get wild, for real this time. Cheap Cheap Falls is primarily a water-based course now. I praised Starview for giving us a neat little introduction to overwater driving, using the word praised very loosely there. It did a good job of easing you into the water physics, so with Cheap Cheap Falls expanding on that, it does a horrible job! The race opens up on a staircase, one of the few courses not to have you start on a flat level, which gives you a lovely taste of adrenaline as straight from the countdown you can fly into the race. Very promising start. And even more so when we drive through this Japanese garden with white sands and autumn leaves on the ground, pull off a trick through this small pagoda. Thematically, this course is on point. There are some small grind rails on both sides as we turn and jump over this stream, and behind a waterfall, truly the horsemen of the coming apocalypse. A couple of dips down a separate waterfall and there it is. It all comes crashing down. Overwater driving is a bit of a pain already. It's slippery, momentum can be very funny on it, so they add speeding rapids to the mix. Yay! Look, we're nearing the end game by this point. The courses are gonna be bumped up a notch. The rapids are situated at the edges of the river, a punishment, if you will, for not having mastered the controls by this point. I should be loving this. But there are separate currents around random patches that just throw you all over the place, branches that send you too fast to make the turn so you just end up slamming into walls, rocks to trick over that will constantly have you bobbing up and down in the water, off-road that always seems too easy to get caught on. Call it a skill issue, whatever, but to me, this is more than a challenge, it's just straight up annoying. But again, it should be a blast. The branches to give you a short rail ride should be longer so they feel more rewarding to go for, because they're not at all easy to get on, and when you finally do after all that effort, you don't really gain much. There is one that's my saving grace on this course. It's on the left when you jump down the waterfall, and it leads you to a raised section of land that lets you skip most of the twists and turns, and all in all, it saves this course from being much lower down on the list. Once we come out of the river and it levels out, it all goes good again. There are cheap cheeps in the water, I should bloody hope so, seeing the name of this thing, and some rocks to jump off, only now in a controlled environment. Look how much fun I'm having when I'm not being almost drowned to death. And then it's back up to the stairs to the start. God, just cut the river section, or no, cut the rapids in the river section, and this might be a top 10 course for me. But divinity be damned, we're in the timeline where God keeps the rivers. To be fair, this is accurate to how he works in canon. But it makes it no less of a shame for the rest of the track. Yeah, I mean, if I don't like overwater driving all that much, why is Salty Salty Speedway gonna survive my opinion? Nah, I'm capping on that one. We are into the realm of courses I like, but Speedway opens up with our vehicles already on the water, but at least it's some nice still water this time. There's none of those flipping rapids again. Kosuke Yabuki, you're a real one for that. The water, acting as a canal, slithers up through this street with its own pavement, which, hey, I like options in my water tracks. That's one of the saving graces Falls had. Unfortunately, it's raised, a choice that angers me. Not really, but these parts are only accessible from the second lap onwards, as the area surrounding the starting line is how you access them, and we started too far forward to get the chance. Now you might think, Dragoneel, just do a charge jump and hop up there. Yeah, good luck with that, bucko. There's no time or room to pull off something like that, and even if you do, coming at them from the water is practically suicide. They're really, really thin. A good incentive to get used to the water physics, but it's still a bit of a bummer not to have them more accessible. Anyway, beyond the first 10 seconds of the race, hey! My prayers are answered and the land returneth. Here's where this course gets really good. There's quite a big donut turn, but you might notice some high up rails on the right edge and one crossing from the left. If you charge jump and wall ride for just long enough, you can catch the rail and hop on over to take this shortcut to cut off the last of the donut. What a tongue twister. Staying on the regular path leads you up some stairs and into the middle of Malta. No dinosaurs this time. Weird reference. I don't know, it's all I could come up with. They're not always going to be funny. The course is actually based heavily on Amsterdam and Venice, evident with the music that I need to talk about the music more in these courses. There's a lovely open town square with some sharp turns onto some pergola-looking structures that you can even grind on following from the previous shortcut. Brilliant bit of interconnectivity, and a juicy patch of grass for a huge mushroom cut. Turning off from the square sends you back to the canal, which actually lets you onto the sides from the beginning this time. We're looking better by the minute. The water does get more complex here, but still isn't tempted by the rapids. We are back! The end of the canal opens up into the sea, very open, much wider than it needs to be. Kinda a letdown to the finish? But if you charge jump like you did earlier, you can catch another rail, ride across to the other side of the street, take a bridge back to the side you were on, and glide from this tower, cutting most of the water and getting a glorious view. There's our finale! Back in the water, you'll notice these toad gondoliers by this point, rowing their way along with you, allowing you to trick off their boat, simple and clean. I like 'em! Gripes with the water aside, there is one other thing that drags this down in my opinion, and you might not see it as much as I do, but I've seen this track before. This does feel a lot like a blend of Bangkok Rush and some of the other Mario Kart Tour courses, and after almost 7 years of those across multiple games, it doesn't do as much as it would have for me had it released maybe 2 or so titles ago. Billy Brown, you were a victim of the times or something. Again, the references ain't always going to be good. And sometimes, neither are the transitions between... I'm ill while I record this bit. Wowza! Another water one! Whoa, who could have seen it coming? But which one? Well, the next least good one. Dandelion Depths is... it's alright, isn't it? A historic moment in the Mario Kart scene, as it's the first course to ever be based on Super Mario Odyssey. Oh my god! Didn't notice. Like, genuinely, Steam Gardens, aside from the steampunk half of its aesthetic, has gardens. This don't? It's got dirt. That's not the same. As the name of the course implies, this is a deep track. Most of the race is spent descending into it, and that's pretty damn unique. However, uniqueness doesn't always equal excitement, and maybe another go at this formula would be a bit more fancy with it, because there's not a whole lot going on for the first 2/3 of the track. It opens with a turn and a small bridge with grind rails on both sides, been done plenty of times by this point, then it's what most of this course is. Big turns to the left. Big wide turns to the left, with the occasional divot in the road to gain a trick and a long rail on the right, but you can tell they're all just distractions because you're just turning. At the end of the big curve comes a perfectly lined up trick onto a wall that you can hop from to get a quote-unquote shortcut, which, I mean, this is basic. How far into the game are we now when we're doing the most base-ass alternate routes? There's some mud directly underneath it to, again, not really take a shortcut, but it's presented as if it is one. Then a small weave into another long-ass turn, this one providing you with a huge decision. Do you go left and take a turn into the cavern, or do you go right and take a turn into the cavern? There is almost no differentiation betwixt the two, other than the fact they made me use the word betwixt like I'm a poet or something. Actually, I tell a lie, they spit you out at slightly different points beginning the next section. Wow, so fun and interesting. And ladies and gents, folks outside or in between, it's time for another round of
Water, Ruins, Courses!
Ta-da! Now, the water sections in these 3 courses have been improving steadily each time. We had the rapids, got rid of those but kept a small flow of water, and now we've gotten rid of that in place of, well, not flowing water. Instead, the cave is split into layered pools, each circled with a ridge of rock to trick off of. It can get a little finicky with the bobbing in and out of the water to align with the rocks, but all in all, a good section. And hey, there's even some dandelions down here. I almost forgot they were supposed to be a topic of interest, but that's not all the fun this section's hiding, as when you're racing, you might catch a glimpse of a double item box way up in the high right there, and I'll tell you, this was one of the longest shortcuts I've ever had to learn how to do. I just could not find out how to get up there for ages, so imagine my face when I finally did, and it's just about the same as taking the normal route. But there's a double item box up there. Yeah, there's one down on the main line too. If there were like a bundle of coins up here to get you back to full speed, make the journey a bit more notable, I'd be taking it all the time, but there's so little payoff for how much of a bitch it is to scale this wall. The finale of the course sees us facing an Alpine Pass-esque climb. Yes, I am legally bound to using all of the course's British names, I hate it too, except whereas in that track you'd be bombarded with boulders heading down towards you, here it's just another case of left, right. We do a big jump with a final big turn with some more off-road mud, and I'm left feeling particularly whelmed. Like, the course isn't bad, we're far away from that word by now, but it's not spectacular. Alright, I knew those three were going to be quite close by, as I feel they're all just different stages in overwater evolution, but I swear I did not mean to put a fourth watercourse back to back with them. Beach Beach, our first section track of the list, since we are looking at its versus orientation, of course. Wait, hang on, it's literally the same in the Grand Prix. Let's dive! First lap. It's Peach Beach. It's exactly the way you remember it. Well, almost exactly the way you remember it. It's one of those that's barely changed every time it's been brought back. And you know what? Good. Sometimes you want just a cozy, feel-good track, and that's what this course gives you to begin with. And I will say, out of all the returning courses in this game, I think this one benefits the most from the new visuals. Seriously, it's stunning. I could marry it. It takes place around the Peach Resort Royal Beach Hotel, clearly heavily inspired by Mont Saint Michel, quite like how a later course in this list will relocate around a big central structure. Let me tell you, they did it twice for a damn good reason. It allows things like that unnatural side route at the beginning of the race to feel natural. The tide no longer rises and lowers here, but who cares? You can drive on the water now. The challenge that the difference in depth created has been removed, so yeah, fine by me. One of the things I would have preferred here would be maybe just a couple more cataquacks, but I can live with the two of them. But that's a lap done. A fun, good romp through the place we love. Time to move into... oh my! Peak. Absolute beach peak. And it doesn't even happen by the beach. We start by winding up the streets of the resort, you know, big old twists and turns, but not the easy kind. These are pretty tight, a pair of 180s to be precise, rails on each side, and my god it looks hot while it does it, throwing us into a shopping street of sorts with just so much to do. The alt routes on Salty, this is that turned up to 11. Ropes leading from rails to rooftops, crates and barrels tucked to the sides, not in your way but an obstacle should you get bumped towards them, poles jutting from the walls to carry on your frenzy of tricks, and it's just a straight line. Cinema, absolute cinema. Sorry, Boo Cinema, you weren't actual cinema. There's a boxed off shortcut requiring either a speed item or a projectile to cut a small corner off the next turn, shoutouts for a shortcut actually being shorter for once, and a section I'm not too sure about. We get plenty of steps to trick up, a rail keeping you dead center, it's all leading you towards this archway, building up to the final lap, which is... interesting. It's a big glide, and it's doing very well at being that. The alley continues and the buildings are extended way up into the sky. There's so much height to this section, it looks really cool. However, it's a bit empty. There are maybe 2 spots to continue the race in the air, and if you do, props to you. It'll get you up to this glorious dive off the ends of the roofs, but for those who don't, you've just got a bit of an awkward descent through the street. There's a rail in the middle of it again, but unless knocked down by an item of some kind, you probably won't reach the ground until you're out of this whole lane, even while holding down on the controls as much as feasibly possible. It's kind of a wasted space. And then there's more. This giant open body of water that goes on for far too long before connecting to the Peach Beach we know, a couple of dash panel ramps and a small set of steps blocked by some crates just don't hide how obvious it is that they had to make this connect in the grander scheme of the open world. It feels so forced, and it drags down an otherwise nigh perfect course. Almost that entire last lap was pure filler. Maybe in another life, PB. Perhaps we could have explored that hotel a bit instead. Here it is, the series standard Mario Circuit. Or not. Most games in the series have a Mario Circuit to call their own, usually falling within the first couple of cups unless you're dope as fuck. They're a chance to show you a more down-to-earth race course before you get back to the insanity of a mall or a cruise ship, things way out of the ordinary. But with Mario Kart 8's Mario Circuit, even though the layout was quite basic, the visuals got wild. You were racing past upside-down castles, water falling into the sky. Mario Circuit wasn't just the grass track anymore, it was stepping away from that. So in a world where tracks tend to obey the laws of physics, what could Mario Kart World have done without taking a step back? I don't know, merge 3 previous courses into one. What the world, eh? That is what they did. And while not wholly mind-blowing, it is just a racetrack in the sand, it's pretty innovative. This kind of thing hasn't been done properly before. I said properly. It's clear why they did this. I don't think any of the Mario circuits from Super Mario Kart on their own would exactly have sufficed, especially for a Special Cup course, and they had to include a SNES track. They couldn't just leave out a game's representation. Could they? It's just a really solid track to navigate. It's got plenty of obstacles to avoid and tons of shortcuts to nab due to its flatness. Would it have been cooler to include the long-lost Mario Circuit 4? Absolutely. Would it have been cool to include maybe the 3 Mario circuits from the first 3 games? Too right it would. Does it look out of place on the world map? Oh boy! It's straight to the point, it's fine, it doesn't have any water to piss me off. Hey, the water cursor's ended! Did I speak too soon? Wario's Galleon, I hate it. I hate being British. Wario's shipyard's so much cooler. Big Galleon resurgence lately though. I think it's pretty middle of the road in 7, but I can appreciate it for what it is. You know what I can't appreciate though? The complete and utter Wario erasure from this course. What was once a track lined with yellows and purples as the greedy chauvinist wanted to plaster his look over every last scrap of ship in his yard has become a wasteland of bland pirate colours, none of the branding you'd expect from the fella. In fact, the only part of the course that presents us with a Wario feels more like an Easter egg than a fundamental part of the track. This isn't Wario's Galleon anymore. It's just Galleon, and that's boring! Also, it took 1 track to bring me back to a watercourse. Oh my.
Good lord.
The first turn into the first ramp has been widened to include an off-road sand section with a grind rail to divvy up the gameplay. It'll skip the item boxes available, but it gets you out of the line of fire from enemy racers. I don't know, I'm just a sucker for any kind of alternative. The next section's almost entirely unchanged layout-wise, but with the addition of water. Over water. And you know what? Yeah, in the original you weren't really gaining much from being under the water, so the change here is an objectively good switch up. Especially since waves. Now, I've ragged on any time the water usage in this game alters your flow of movement, so be amazed when I tell you I love the waves. See, the problem with things like Cheep Falls was the water being mostly flat, so you're slipping and sliding all over the place, and the rapids only exacerbated that. But with the constant flow of waves acting like ramps, you surprisingly have much more control over your trajectory as you can shift directions from each jump boost. Plus, jump boosts. More to do is always welcome. However, we're instantly met with one of the many reasons this course doesn't work out of water. We enter the tunnel of bloody Sans Wario, where the waves mixed with a tight corridor don't make for a hugely pleasant experience. But even worse is the removal of the fish bones. This used to be a cool skeleton bit. Not only in design, driving through a big rib cage, but on some laps, the enemies themselves would swim through and knock you about. Now it's just stone and wood. Again, a fundamental misunderstanding of the course. People didn't like it because of the ships. They were a fine setting, but it was more the caveats that came with the Wario branding and the sunkenness that people liked about it. The next part suffers even more from the new water feature. Remember those bubble jet pipes that turned on and off to alter the size of the track you take, and then that huge pipe that sends you into the next area? Say bye-bye! It's replaced with mostly open water, some sand along the side, and everyone's favourite shortcut, the rock. There's a big rock with a rail snaking around it that'll not exactly save you any time. Mario Kart World, why do you do this? It adds a raised level out of the water before shoving you into the ship where, I mean, it's the ship, it's still pretty good. If anything, I like that the anchor's a lot bigger now. The cannon of the ship's missing one Viking-themed Wario, but it's adding some neat rope rails along the shipwrecked masts on the other side. Since the standard 7 end-of-course glide was removed, they needed something extra to include one of the new gimmicks, and I'm cool with these. They're a bitch to get onto, and would you believe it, they actually saved time. Wow, what a world. And the ending's the same as it was. Yeah, you all know how it is. It gets by on being a solid enough course all in all, but my word has it lost all of its sauce. I mean, look at this picture real quick. That's Wario's galleon, but in World, it's had all of the life sucked right out of it. This is just one of those instances where World's visuals actively hamper a course. This looks so dull. Call it Zack Snyder's galleon, know what I'm saying? Who would have ever thought this would be so near the middle of the list? Heck, I didn't even think this would be so close to the middle of the list, because Choco Mountain's always just been one of those ones for me. Quite bare bones. Even when it got its quote-unquote glow-up in Mario Kart Tour and 8 Deluxe, I was still always just a bit like, eh. So what could the boys have possibly done to improve it? Make it good for one. The course has been transformed, just like most of the ones that get remade, and this is one of the few times it's strayed so far from the original, but I'm kind of about it. It has been turned from a mountain made of chocolate to a monster truck arena? Maybe still made of chocolate. It's a wild departure, but it makes for such a more interesting experience. Main difference this time around is you're not closed in the whole time. There's a lot more room to fall off edges, take shortcuts through chocolate, right? Okay, so there's supposedly 3 types of chocolate. There's tough chocolate, there's slippery chocolate, acting somewhat like the mud from Luigi's Mansion, and then there's the gloopy chocolate. It's a bit like the overwater driving, except without a constant speed boost, you'll eventually slow down and get caught in the stuff and drown. Family-friendly fun for everyone. If you ask me, this is the only bit that I think could actually pass as chocolate, because the rest of the track, I wouldn't want to eat that. It looks disgusting! It's so pale and grainy. Ugh. But the mountain's in the shape of a big truck, and that's funny. I know aesthetically it works with the rest of the course, but I could have maybe done without the metal plating. It just loses more of the choco nature, but again, not a huge flaw, a minor nitpick. This is also now the home of the charging chucks, apparently. They are used sparingly, so you never get fed up of them. They just appear sometimes to catch you off guard, and that is good! Even better because they always act differently. The first set jump about and switch places, the next ones kick footballs onto the track, and the last ones, I don't know, just can't decide which side to stand on. Which leads right into, unfortunately, the weak point of the course, and it's literally about 10 seconds of gameplay. We jump off this ramp into an open bit of maybe chocolate with a short gap between the next bit of the actual land chocolate. After reaching that next part of the track, a couple more ramps send you to some more sparse bits of track, and they just slow it down. It barely affects the track, you can just drive through the left and avoid the whole thing, so why turn the actual route into a slog? It's a small part of an otherwise pretty good remake. I've not a lot more to say other than the music flipping rocks. I am a big DK Pass defender. I think it's a really fun course, it's very cozy, vibes are immaculate, got remade in 7, they added flight, so I was personally always waiting for it to get its big new update. And I'm quite pleased. Allow me to explain just how pleased I am by saying things I don't like about it. The sky. DK Pass in its original form was so darn jolly because it looked like a long drive home during the holidays. Freezing cold probably, but the sun was out, it was all bright and colourful. See, I like it, but how about we make it not nice? I don't know, for every time the lighting in the game makes a course look amazing, you also get times where everything just kind of looks dull. Another change is the setting. Kind of. The original had a couple of log cabins off outside of the track towards the end that get expanded on in things like Tour, where there's a few more of them, plus in holiday variants there's a Christmas tree and fun stuff like that. World went balls to the wall and turned the entire thing into a ski village, and for the most part, that works. I say for the most part because here's the bit it doesn't. Mario Kart DS's DK Pass ends with a big old jump into Snowman's Land. Nintendo beat me to that one by like 20 years. The track was littered with snowmen, and they were a perfectly appropriate Star Cup hazard. Imagine how much harder it would be if they weren't there. Oh, so much harder. Almost as hard as breathing. You might encounter one snowboarding shy guy, but I don't know, I've never hit one. Another removed obstacle are the later half of the snowballs. What a snow removed from this snow course, eh? There used to be giant rolling snowballs on your descent, the same as the ones we have on the ride up the mountain, but again, gone. Instead replaced with something Choco Mountain kind of failed to deliver on: the new mechanics. The peak, well, the highest point of the course, has been remastered to implement grinding and grinding. It's been turned into a little bit of a wooded area, meaning there's a few trees to dodge and, more importantly, some loose branches sticking out of the ground that can be rail-ridden for a trick. Hey, real quick, look how well this coin sound effect lined up with the music. Pretty cool, eh? If that seemed a bit out of place and off the cuff, don't worry, it was. I'm stalling for the fact that I originally had a bit written about this ramp off to the side. I was going to talk about how it's so strange that the easy route is so out of the way, practically impossible to get to. Turns out, yeah, it is impossible to get to. It's part of the spectators. Lakitu scoops you up if you try and go on it. But now I find it even stranger because you can still rail ride along the edge of it, so the game still wants you to go there. I don't know. Rant aside, like I said, Star Cup track, so there's a bit of a difficulty bump in some of those pesky world shortcuts. Including, but not limited to, things like driving off of cliffs to trick off an incredibly tall post, or beginning the tightest charge jumps to reach breakneck rail turns before you jump off. Okay, wait, is that a spanner? That's funny as hell. True, there's a lot to love here. I mean, it's DK Pass, how can you not? It's just one of those preference things for me. I liked it when it was more abandoned, and I don't even think I need to argue that. No one else seems to give much of a shit about this course, but I do, and I feel bad for where I had to place it. You really are the most devious bastard in Crown City. Apologies, folks, it's just another section course has got me in the mood. Shall we see how it fares? We begin just at the end of the giant suspension bridge in the middle of the map, which is a damn good thing because my god is this thing boring. And two positives in a row, another beautiful sight by the game's graphics. Holy smokes! Peach Beach. Are you open to polygamy? The lighting coming from the spotlights, the billboards and store headers, the street lamps, and especially when you get up in the heights in the middle of the track, the colours pop so well, goodness gracious! And yes, I am aware at this point that the lighting is constantly changing throughout your races, so it's a good thing that the daytime version looks just as sexy. I'm not usually a big advocate for overly realistic settings in Mario Kart, so when I tell you I love this sprawling cityscape, you know it must be good. We've never seen anything to this scale before, or at least not in a version we can actually traverse. Right, back to it. First section of the course. This is the much more grounded, street level part of it all. There are cars on the road, quite an obstacle for a mushroom cuppa, technically, maybe a shell cuppa, don't you think? Well, the road's more than wide enough to accommodate them and you. Being a city, there's going to be twists and turns all over the place, and that's demonstrated perfectly by this immediate choice to cut through the street on your left. It has a small rope tied to a market awning to get out of harm's way. No coins or an extra item box for doing so though. In fact, you get none of those this entire direction. The other way's just as boring too, so nice to have the option, just be nicer to have more of a reason to choose between them. But they converge into some nice tight turns through some alleyways, up some stairs with a nice grind rail in the middle of them. Can I just say as well for a second, I love a centered rail ride. They're easy to get to and are a banging way to scoop up a few coins, but if you miss them at all, it's quite hard to get back onto them, especially in sections this short and narrow. I don't know, I think that's kind of neat. Then you jump up into a tiny representation of a skate park with a nice simple grass cut and a quarter pipe. Pipes are back? Like from Mario Kart Wii! Okay, rewind. I hate the pipe usage in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Tour for that matter. Those games just weren't designed for a trick system like that in mind, so they always felt like some abomination, a patchwork attempt to try and recreate Wii. Here though, they kept the mechanic in mind from the get-go, even if they're only used like, what, 3 times in all the courses? They're just a fun extra bit of something. That sums up a lot of this track. There's not a whole lot to blow your mind, but there is just some fun to be had on it, you know? From there, we join the main road, complete with an overpass, a divide in the middle that can be ground on, is that right? Ground? Cars galore, and that's section 1. It's good shit! The second lap is the one we're the most familiar with. It's the one you probably played first in the Grand Prix, and yes, it is the high point of the course. Pun absolutely intended. From the main road, we take a big ol' U-turn up Warp Plaza apparently, which takes us up to our first taste of the open skyline. Allow me to pick the next 7 seconds of gameplay apart piece by piece. A dash panel ramp sends us into a pair of solar-powered rooftops, each giving you a different feature to play with. Are you a grinding Graham, or do you have a need for speed? Because on the right is just another boosted ramp, and on the left are 2 grind rails connecting to the next building, each with a widened end to make access nice and easy, being a fairly beginner track. From them, you'll find another dash ramp, but coming from the right then switches you to the grind rails, making it so no matter what you choose, you're gonna be getting a mixed experience either way. That's very good. And even better, one of the second set of grind rails is longer than the other, lets you flip over to the short one if you've had enough, or you can keep going if you like them. We jump across a few turning parts held up by cranes, almost like they're building some sort of electrodrome too. Look at that, tell me that doesn't look like the bit that goes... And then it's a leap through the titular crowned tyre the city's named after. That's why it's called Crown City? That's like 3 seconds of gameplay, what the? This is where we begin our descent back down into the city, with a small helipad into a construction-esque zone. There's blue tarps and some cones and barriers, makes me maybe wish they'd done a little more with that, could have been cool. But I can't be too mad when A, we can pull a sketchy hop over this U-turn a la Mushroom Gorge, and B, a glorious glide back along the main road, but from a whole different perspective. Do you want to dive down to the road or wall ride the buildings, grind on their billboards? It's wonderfully open. Too open? Nah, surely not. Couldn't be. People are always using the far right of the track. Aren't they? Section 3! Hello, old friend. You ugly shit of a friend. Send me the right way. You cunt. There's an option to cut the corner and jump from this car showroom. It really is throwing me off how many of these characters fell to capitalism, I won't lie. Onto a nice coastal road, weaving down the street. Plenty wide enough for a couple grass shortcuts before heading through a small road closed in with some buildings. Nowhere to diverge here, we're in the endgame now, so it's just battle central. There's a long turn to the left with a charged jump rail to access that can cut off a bit of grass too, and by now you've connected to the beginning from the bridge. Congratulations, you're now officially a Crown City tourist. Wowza! What a trip! From the glitz and glam to the rough streets. Why is it only 17th on the list? Well, I think the middle of the course does a lot of the work here. Yeah, the heights, call me a Tory. It just looks a lot prettier up from the sky, but the beginning and the end are just a bit too normal looking. Like the skate area and the narrow stairway made me want a proper juxtaposing course with a grimy underbelly, but nah. It's just kind of the peak of the city, but a bit shorter. It's a shame. But it's still a great course. Almost as great as... Mario Bros. Circuit? What? The starter course. Better than Crown City? Why yes, I suppose it is. Sometimes, folks, less is more, and this course certainly has far, far less, but so much more. First of all, how refreshing is it to have the first course in the game set outside of the typical circuit stadium archetype? It's awesome! It immediately sets off some alarms that this game's going for something a little bit different. This ain't the polished raceway you're used to. It's a dirty, rugged track in the baking heat of a canyon. It's a trucker's paradise, this place. And boy does it show off what this game has up its sleeve. Right away, you've got room to dick about with your charge jumps. The road's plenty wide enough to show you what 24 racers feel like. Hang on. And most importantly, it's got rails. Tons of them! Accessibility-friendly rails at that. Mario Kart's gone woke! At each side at the end of this first turn, you can easily ride up onto them to see what all the fuss is about. It's nothing super duper ultra spectacular or anything, but it is educational, and if you lot know me by now, you'll know I love a good lesson or two. Up ahead, you might see that some sides stretch way further out, so the coin placements perfectly entice you to leave the rails whenever you fancy. Driving up takes us under a huge rocky tunnel that shoves you into the centerpiece of the course, this giant turn that loops around over the tunnel. The inside ledge doesn't have a wall to save you from falling, and honestly, with how long this turn is, there have been way too many times where I'm trying to save seconds and go right off over it. I'm good at the game, I swear. From here you get just a treat. The road snakes downward, and following it gives you some more easy access rails to ride and a small off-road shortcut to the left. But driving straight off the right-hand side will drop you onto this roughly put together ledge with a small wooden ramp that can send you into this small wall, giving you your first look at the wall riding mechanic. Another rail that's slightly more hidden, it blends in a lot more than the other ones we've been seeing. That'll actually take you through the stands of the stadium if you've been enjoying rail riding. And lastly, there's a gliding ramp over the track to this extra little section too high up to reach from the ground, with an extra rail just because why on earth not? And one last wooden ramp to get that tiny bit ahead. Bloody heck, what a jam-packed 15 seconds of gameplay. To the left of the finish line, there's a small pit stop to try and avoid some items and another tiny grind rail, a green one, letting you know that one from the side path might be rideable as well. And as if that wasn't enough, if one's lucky enough to gain a mushroom by the beginning of a new lap, then one can blast through these tyres to nab the final grind rail and skip over the entire first turn. How will they top this course in the next game? I don't know that they will. It is damn near perfect for what you can ask for in an opening track, and the fact that it had the balls to go for such a wildly different visual approach while doing so can only earn it the highest of compliments from me. And now, before we continue, I just want to give you a quick word from today's sponsor. Just kidding, as if I'd have a sponsor. But what I do want to do is take a moment to talk about the battle courses in this game, a completely original idea that I came up with. Cause see, I didn't specify that I was only covering the race courses. I'm not going to sugarcoat the state of them, they're mostly shit. A lot of them are made from pre-existing race courses, because we all know that worked so well the first time you tried, didn't it, chaps? Like seriously, one of the big parts of the marketing for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the fact that you'd fix the monstrosity you created last time. Why are you trying to double down on it? But anywho, a course is a course, so I gotta rank them. Wouldn't it be funny if I talked about Mario Bros. Circuit twice in a row? Forget funny, try hysterical. While Mario Bros. Circuit makes an excellent race course, it does not make a good battle course at all. It makes a great free roaming area, there's plenty to explore, lots of little tucked away secrets, hidden areas and whatnot, but you don't want that in a battle course. For starters, we've got the fact that, yep, it's the whole ass track. Things like the loop up top are far too out of the way for anyone to spend too much time at, and then parts like the opening straightaway are just boring. And for the main course, I don't really care for the new features. Don't get me wrong, in a race, I want as many of them as I can shake a stick at. You get a leg up over the other racers, so things like grind rails are a perfect opportunity to do that. However, when I'm trying to take more intricate, zigzagging paths, it's irritating as hell when you get locked in place for a second on a rail. Made even worse when another driver gets onto the same rail, and now you're locked in their line of sight. It's such a backward idea, it just doesn't feel like a battleground, especially when most of them don't actually take you away from danger. A lot of them just snake around on the ground, like if I'm going to be forced to take one of these by going too close to it, at least take me out of harm's way, you know? Another big downer is the water. Below most of the track is a small lake, and these aren't great at the best of times, so trying to maneuver around to catch opponents is a right gamble. You're turning circles so wide, half the match is over by the time you're facing the other way. Where this course shines is in its service stations. The diner and the buildings around it give just the right amount of cover, while also letting you up onto the roofs for some sniper action if you should so please. Up here is where the parkour actually takes off quite a bit too. The spiraling rail around the rock lets you access some of the other rooftops. Honestly, if the whole course was just this area, it would be a lot higher, but it gets dragged down by all the added fluff. I also especially hate these dead ends, like they couldn't even be bothered to round the edges. They have these awkward bits that look like they're about to trail off into an expanse, but then no, just a wall. Lazy work, guys. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. Hey look, I didn't like the water in Mario Bros. Circuit. What if there was another course based entirely around it? Oh no! Yeah, so why is Salty Speedway above MBC? It has even more water in its contents. Surely that's not good. I make a terrible sea creature. And it's not good, but it makes up for it in the scenery. Once again, the buildings are the best parts to nobody's surprise, and boy does this course have a whole lot of them. Simply put, doing battle up around the Murdo statue, hold your applause, is really fun. It makes for a perfect centerpiece. You can access it either from the land or from the water, either which way. There are ramps leading up to it from both sides of its pier. Would you call this a pier? The rails have been toned down a bunch too. They're mainly just next to stairways and along the lead up to the statue. They're far less intrusive than they were before, unlike my thoughts. It makes good use of its setting too. You can drive up the lighthouse area and get a really good vantage point from this glider ramp and another lower one from driving up the back of this yacht. Cool, very neat. And that put me out of neat things to say about it. It's still too big to engage all of the players. Not as big as Mario Bros, or at least it doesn't seem it, but there are still far too many instances where you'll be driving aimlessly with next to no one in sight. Not entirely awful, but still a little bit awful. It's a race course. Same deal goes for Moo Moo Meadows, and this one might even be bigger than the last two. Chain Chomp Roulette music? Who am I to judge? This course has the unique distinction of being the only returning track to be remade from a pre-existing course. What is their deal? Do the fools just really think we like the cows? They're adorable, yeah, but it doesn't mean I want to sift through their shit every bloody game. We've gone back to including the entirety of the course with the added bells and whistles that MBC gave us. This time, most of the course converges on the barn in the middle, and again, if this was just the barn and a small ring of grass outside it, that would be an excellent arena. You'd have to be making rapid movements around the hay bales, that would be brilliant, but instead we're treated to more dead ends. Yay! The parkouring's almost non-existent in this course, as the only real opportunity to get up anywhere is this one gliding ramp, and even then, it's right on the outskirts of the farm, so you can maybe reach one rooftop from it. Cool. Where am I supposed to go from here? This might sound stupid as well, but there's too much grass on the farm. On a course like MBC, even Speedway, there were plenty of wide open areas with flat ground to move about on. You might have gone off-road to sneak around the back of the diner, but it never felt like you were forced to. Here, the road just simply isn't wide enough to accommodate a good battle. The only real open part isn't even that open. It's the barn, which is an enclosed space. It just feels like the devs really wanted us to be rolling along the grass, but it brings the pace down to an unholy level. Mow it down and let those burgers starve to death. Gasp! A unique area made specifically with the battle mode in mind? Why thank you, Nintendo! I don't like it. Yeah, Chain Chomp Desert's just kinda whatever. It's fine, we are actually into the realm of courses that don't suck dick, but it's that. It's not even really a wholly original idea, it's just a blend of Chain Chomp Roulette. Why is this one not using that course's music? And Thwomp Desert, they just took away the gimmick that made that one interesting, the central thwomp that would send ripples through the quicksand, slapped a rolling metal ball with teeth in there and called it a day. I actually forgot the Chain Chomp was present in playing this course for homework. I always just seemed to be where it wasn't. Easy fix. 2 Chain Chomps! You'd have double the risk, double the fun. Nintendo, why can't we just have fun? Don't you know girls just don't want to have fun? Something else that made Thwomp Desert so cool too were the cacti. Because the whole course was sloping down toward the center, it would have been a no-brainer to simply roam the outer edges of the arena. The cacti prevented that, so what do we think they did here? Widened the safe zone and added giant-ass rocks to get in your way. Thanks, guys. It's just a bit of an inferior version of both battle courses of a similar vein to it. There are finally no rails or anything of the sort. Yeah, that's alright. what would they really achieve anyway? I mean, the thing's just a big circle. Good call. That's about all I can say for it. They made some good calls in that they finally decided to make an actual battle course with the intent of having you battle instead of pretend you're at the Grand National. They just missed the mark a bit in other areas. Well, back to race courses. DK Pass is actually, believe it or not, really close to greatness. Despite being named after and set at the pass, the crux of this course are the ski slopes, not the actual mountain we normally race on. 3 fat slopes forking off from each other with a bowl of madness where they connect, and ridges at intervals up each slope to blind your view of players coming up or down. Sounds like fun! And it is! The added Shy Guys snowboarding amongst you add a whole lot too. Not only are they an extra obstacle to keep your eye on, but they make mighty fine decoys too. You waste a lot of items mistaking them for your opponents, and I kinda really love that as a feature, whether it was intended or not. There's virtually no off-road down here either. It's just the wide white incline and some decorative slalom gates housing the item boxes. And then it continues. As a wise man once said, it insists upon itself. You have these perfectly adjoined slopes that are ripe for battle, and then they just go up, and they carry on, and all of a sudden there's a load of off-road sneaking its way in, and there's trees, and they're all overlapping. You get these little loops just lingering on one side, and it just continues way too far up the hill. It becomes tiresome, because as the player, you want to be down here having all the fun. You want to be in the mix of the Shy Guys and the blind spots. But everyone else doesn't. They're all away with the fairies, pissing about up top, so you head up to get them, but then oops! They've made their way back down to the bottom. It's a gaping flaw that almost, not entirely, but almost swallows up the rest of the course. But alas, even so, the bottom half of the map is a treat, and it's expertly measured out, and for that, it's a pretty good battle course. Another racecourse battle course. Luckily, the one this one takes from is Peach's Paperclip, which on its own would have made a dandy little arena. So take 2 of them, flip one to make it symmetrical, what do you get? Peach Stadium, a really bleeding good course. It is so effective by doing practically nothing. It is just a big rectangle with a raised road going up the middle of it, and that's exactly what a good battle course should be. The most basic shape imaginable. Nice and even, so there are no clusters at any parts and an empty void at another, and did somebody say tricks? Almost every curb is trickable. In fact, every one might be. There are minimal obstructions, just a couple of train and bus stations, the odd pillar holding up the higher road. On occasion, a train will pull into the terminal, and that's a nice little way to toss the game up in the air towards the end. There are grind rails situated along all of the walls, as is standard by this point, but they're not intrusive in any way. Usually, there would be vehicles driving along these roads, but to save themselves just circling the same laps over and over, they took the day off, which I am totally fine with. I mean, after all, this place is very open but streamlined. Items can be easily thrown from one side of the map straight to the other. This is the point where I talk about all the awkward dead ends, isn't it? Unfortunately, the upper road is built in a cross shape, and with only 2 of the routes leading downstairs, 2 of them are just dead ends, which is a real shame. Because aside from that one thing, this is a glorious arena. It's one of the most battle courses from the modern day. This feels ripped straight out of the classics. It scales really well. You can see it right alongside Battle Course 4 or Block Fort. I'd even go as far to say you could see it alongside Big Donut. I mean, it's kind of hard to go wrong, right? It's a circle, and it's very big. It keeps the glide ramp from 7 with the new addition of a Charvag in the middle that'll jump from the lava to gobble up racers if they're not careful. There's nothing like getting chomped out of the air in the last minute to screw up your progress. Good lord, man, I'm a sadist. But it's not like you have to face the thing. You can stay on land where... Yes! They finally did it! They made the chunks into ramps. It's about time! What's he talking about? Something about chunks being ramps? Yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about. In the original BD from Mario Kart 64, these were just walls. I mean, it was a 2v2 back then. You needed cover. When it got brought back, there they remained. And yeah, that's faithful to the source material, but there was always that opportunity. Surely something could have been done to them. I'm talking as if slightly angling the sides of them was as pivotal as the second coming of Christ. but it's such a minuscule fix that absolutely breathes new life into this course. Now you can target people from above, take a detour to avoid enemy fire. It adds so much with the smallest change, and that's pretty spectacular. There are also a few triangles of metal for a standard little hop, and I suppose if you time them well, you can jump a shell or something. Not as great as the walls, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a big walls guy now. That's gonna be my whole personality. Excellent stuff! Terrific, even. Could be a bit more prehistoric, though. Hello, dear. Or should I say, dear No Dino Jungle? I love this course. It's the perfect blend of all the others in just the right way. It's another DK Pass type, where yeah, it's based around a pre-existing track, but it's just outside of that actual course's layout. And the layout itself here? Yes, please. It's just a big circle with a bloody cross through it. I'm very easy to please. Sure, the track has the little extensions that lead to nothing, but I'll give it a pass. I mean, other than that, it's literally just an oval. These don't ever confuse you like they do elsewhere. You know I like obstacles, I might have mentioned it. If not, let me reiterate, I like obstacles. There, brand new information. Dinosaurs be obstacles. You got your Rex running amok, trying to eat you and just being the friendliest pair of jaws I want to ride into, but only in the last minute of the battle. One final spanner in the works before time runs out. And then there's the Triceratops and Brachiosaurus acting as the perfect way to dodge danger. Or initiate it. Mwahaha! I'll tell you, there are fewer things I enjoy more than chasing a duck up a dinosaur's spine and pelting it with the remains of a turtle. Peter, if you ever want to sponsor me, my DMs are open. Sometimes the dinosaur will lift its tail off the ground and have a look around, which can lead to a fun little traversal through its legs if you get left behind while going for the grind, but when it's down, it's always there for you. Even when the thing's having a wander, you can still catch a lift. Nearer the second half of a match, a stampede of Triceratops start barging through, allowing for many more tricks and boosts. I love all the animals in this course, and that's without even mentioning the unborn reptilian eggs. Seriously, Peter, I'm your man. You can knock them about all over the place. They don't do anything, they just kind of bounce off you. They are purely scenic, and I love them all the more for it. The off-road, being a central part of the course here instead of feeling like some sort of taboo like in Moo Moo Meadows, provides just the right amount of cover around trees and small speed boosts from tricking off of rocks. The music! Yeah, the music's good. I do semi-wish that the composition for the track had a slightly more tropical feel to it, but at the same time, this slaps. It's just the ideal little package for this game's battle mode. Definitely not amongst the best of the best overall, but absolutely unbeatable in this entry. Okay, let's get back to some standard tracks, shall we?
June 5th, 2025. A Toasterino wanders into the Histocrat Lounge, a place for no-goods and washed-up somebodies, a place where fellas might try and start a fight, but he ain't there for none of that. He's looking for a scoop. He sits at the bar. Good choice. A voice from across the other end says. The Toasterino clocks the figure. A white and red fella, adorned with a long purple fin, slumped at the bar. Small glass of Waddle Wing whiskey balanced on the tip of his caudal fin. How the hell was he set up?
Depends who wants to know.
The Toasterino pulls up a stool beside the fish. The Dragoneel had heard it all before. Big fuss about nothing, he always thought.
If there was, kid, he never came.
A grin curled from the edge of the fish's jaws.
Once. Long time after. It's alright. Like, it's definitely at a disadvantage since I was never a huge fan of the original, as evident here, so it had quite a bit of catching up to do. Doesn't make me want to go and watch paint dry this time, so I guess it worked. Big improvement number one, the bills are a lot more banzai than bullet. They actually require you to input on your controller to avoid. Of course, we're all familiar with the layout, so we could probably guess that the sides of this road would be updated to house rails now. God, these are good. You've either got to jump onto them from the steps on the track, which there's always the risk of overshooting and falling straight into the void. The other option is by charge jumping to them, which, hey, now the banzai bills are doubly effective. If they're in your way, you're not going to be able to catch the rails. Good work, lads! The rails here also demonstrate the art of balancing your rail rides with your stay and drive if you catch my drift. At times, they'll cut corners nice and tightly, but others, they might actually slow you down if you overstay your welcome. Okay, here comes the airship itself. They cooked so hard, holy peak! If any Mario Kart DS course had to appear in this game, it seems like there weren't even any other options. The entrance has been reimagined as a drawbridge, which obviously means you're gonna be able to grind up the chains. I mean, what are you supposed to do, have money and not go gambling? Come on, it's common sense. They connect to the same rails as before, meaning you've got a little while to cruise and relax if you want, but it's all thrown to the side because it's mole time, baby! Yeah, so many moles to dodge. This sounds disingenuous, but really, I'm just very engrossed in the Eulapotafla population in this game. Of course, if you'd like to avoid them, hello, Mr. Rails. I said we saw the back of them, and I lied. With another large bend in the track comes another skippable turn thanks to this rail that can actually be strung together with a few tricks from the previous drawbridge chains, creating a wonderful synergy to bypass a load of the lap, and thankfully, it's not terribly easy to do. If this just let you skip the design all willy-nilly, I'd have my fair few grievances, but since it requires a good command of the trick system, I can only admire it. Inside the airship, they got rid of the crates. Rest in peace, the crates. The only challenge left in this area are the dual burners, with some rails underneath them. That's a really harsh thing to do, especially with the rails being ground level. They're quite easy to lock onto, so you basically get fed right into these things. At least that's why I think they're there. They could be to make quick flips from side to side to help avoid the fire, but I don't know, I think the game has just found a loophole in the system there. Great airship on the whole, though. Oh yeah. It's still a big long spiral and still not a lot happens on it. But outside of the tower, they changed the crack in the ground to just a bit of off-road to mushroom across for one last shortcut, which I think makes a good change. However, I also think it would have been great to keep since the feather item made it into the game proper. That would have been a banging exclusive shortcut. You hardly get any of those these days. But all in all, yeah, it makes it into the better half of the courses. Bear in mind, the good did start a while back, but top 15? For a course I absolutely hate? That's a big achievement. Not a huge fan of this rendition of Bowser's Castle. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. It's another one of, hey, this one bit's really cool. And then everything else just kind of falls flat. Exhibit A, Bowser's, control room, I suppose. What on earth is he controlling? It's a big hexagonal room that splits players into two short corridors, but a charge jump into a wall ride into a rail ride takes you up above any commotion and, as we've established most grind rails do by now, cuts the turns nice and quickly. But if you jump off the sides from the descending slopes in front of the starting line, you can catch a quick ride on these chains, just like Airship Fortress. Little bit of thematic connection there, sneaky sneaky, which take you onto the roof of the control room. Split again like the interior, with some rails on the other side to fling you further ahead on the immediate section following it. All of this tightly packed into this one zone is just masterful craftsmanship. From below, we drive out onto your more standard-looking castle road, just snaking around a bit with a taste of another new mechanic of this game. Lava driving. Science is screwed. Lava in this game acts very similarly, well, the exact same in fact, to the chocolate on Choco Mountain, in that with a mushroom you can zoom right over it, but without one, you might start to sink and, melt alive. It's a tiny little pool of the stuff. You're not missing an awful lot by not driving over it. But beyond a few turns are similar parts with metal grates over them, drivable like normal, but the grates allow lava bubbles to bounce through them, knocking you over on impact. They could actually be seen in the lava pool from before as well, but I thought the prospect of driving on lava was already spooky enough to save that information for now. Like 22 seconds later. I'm very generous. Some final turns. Actually, I just want to say as well, really cool detail that the metal floor on this section has not only been painted red to look like a carpet, but it's also lined with a flame design. Bowser is such a damn poser with his castles. I bloody love it. Anyway, the final turns take us to a giant glide into the air, which is sadly where this course starts to drop off for me. We fly up a tunnel of lava that blends into a raging storm cloud. Okay, that's badass, continue. That leads to an electrically charged section, powered, I'm assuming, by the clouds and their lightning. It makes your vehicle leave a flaming trail behind it and I think go a bit faster, but all in all, it's just a fancy effect. It's like the film reel in Boo Cinema. Like, I suppose it's alright, but what's it actually changing about the course, you know? We do a big jump through the open jaws of a giant burning Bowser-shaped mushroom cloud. Sometimes you can just say shit about these games and anyone who hasn't played them would just have to believe you. Another jump and a long turn, same as before, lead to another glide onto a set of twin U-turns built onto a suspended meteor? Okay, maybe I'm the one getting U-turned around on this course, huh? Oh. On these turns, smaller meteors rain down, their landing spot indicated by a red glowing mark. Alright, yeah, I am back on this track side again. And then another final glide or a jump, depending which U-turn you chose, not back to the future, but back to the finish line. Yeah, this course is pretty sick, actually. Like all Bowser's castles, it's full of new things, constantly throwing different ideas at you, but there is a bit in the middle where you're just kind of going along minding your own business. The big Bowser cloud's cool, but entirely unrelated to the track itself. All those turns really have are the lava on both sides, and like, cool, I guess you can drive over them with a mushroom, but the fact I forgot to mention them until now shows they're not really all that. Time to get away from this course, methinks. Where to? How about far away? Faraway Oasis. Yes, not in fact a desert for those who wondered. But I'll tell you what it is. A course with not a second wasted. More like a millisecond. The race kicks off with an immediate shortcut for later use and a ramp into some water for the standard path. Wait, water? Water in a course I like? What are you talking about? Still water. It's used for a single trick, the perfect dose of a bad gimmick. Then we're up on a big long wooden platform that splits slightly in two, with one path letting you take the sharp inner turn and the other raising you up very slightly and giving you a dash panel to boost you ahead. Though the shorter path also contains a ramp, so really there's no need to ever take the outside one. There is a grindable rail on that side, so maybe if you want to do that. I don't. Both sides launch you onto a long rock, official term, with again some rail ropes on the sides and a ramp in the middle, just a bit of an open straight to get some items flowing, with a big jump at the peak onto a descending rock on the other side. This one has a ropey rail in the middle to lock onto, followed by a small wooden ramp that lets you hop onto one of the two rails lining the edge of the following platform. This is where it all starts coming together. I mean, it's been chill so far, it really flows with the controls, but this bit's a wonderful little bundle of all the new mechanics. The main path turns into a river, not flowing, so that's a plus, nice and wide, another plus, and it winds pretty perfectly with the time it takes to drift on water. 3 pluses, that's a hat trick! Good water, I thought the day would never come. Moses can finally sleep easy. To the left of the river is a wooden platform if you just really can't get the knack of the water. That is a bit slower as punishment for not knowing how to water by this point in the game. But to the right is the go-to route. You can trick out of the water, and if you've lined yourself up right, you can catch a grind up along this rail, hopping halfway up the wooden platform to save up on the lost time from taking it from the start. Everything leads into a small cave with the below river road having a small grass cut with some crates, and both spit you out into a big curved waterfall. Very reminiscent of the ending of, say, Cooper Cape, which, hey, it's a really good end of course set piece, and it sure as hell works here. I will absolutely get too ahead of myself on this section and fall right down it due to the rushing tide. A good use of the flowing water, since this shit ain't that deep. You don't have the slip and slide from the standard overwater driving, just a little bit of a pull when you get too close to the edge. That's good water! One last ramp leads to a nice wide turn with a familiar grass and crate cut back to the wharf. Toad's Wharf. What the world ate is Toad's Wharf? That sounds like a disease. Do you see what I mean about the course though? It's just an expertly crafted run-of-the-mill Mario Kart. It's fun, it's got options, it's not too hard, but has bits to keep you on your toes. And maybe some of you think it's ridiculous that this beats out Airship and Bowser's? Go make your own video on it then, see if I care. I always see these two together. I don't really know why. Like, Far Away isn't nearly as tropical as Great Question Block Ruins, but they just seem to go thematically well together, don't they? Now, layout-wise, this track doesn't look like it's got an awful lot going on. It's just sort of up, then down, then up, then down, then up again, and then it's over. But boy, does it have so much to make up with. First of all, damn, that just looks really good. The floating isles in the Mario franchise are always just kind of there, bit of background to fill up some empty space. So taking that minuscule concept and just sprinting away with it, it creates a masterpiece. I feel like I'm in the Louvre right now. Inside the question block, there's a little rail just off-road and another even off-road. I don't really know how you're supposed to get there. Even with a mushroom, it's at a really weird angle. But it's all part of the plan, as taking the rail with the appropriate speed sends you onto the tight-as-hell rail on the next spiral section, letting you pass it in mere seconds. But then you become unable to take this wall ride slash rail ride into an early glide, letting you gloss over most of the next section. If you go the normal way, you take a really sharp bleeding turn. I mean, like, the comms consistently ram through the barriers here and go off the edge. You then take another turn, less ball-crunchingly tight, and into the open road. Talk about multiple paths! Gladly. A bouncy cloud sends us to a nicely splitting path. One sends you to another bouncy cloud. Warning, don't try and bounce off clouds in real life. They might not have the same effect. And the other sends you down onto the road proper. From the second bouncy cloud, you'll reach a small island with a boost ramp. That'll lead you to a third bouncy cloud. That'll lead you to a second, slightly longer island, which can be used to avoid conflict. Hey kid, being bullied at school? Try the bouncy cloud and small island route on Great Question Block Ruins. All your problems will be solved. And of course, it lets you get the drop on other racers by the end. Alternatively, if you get knocked down by an item of sorts, you could land on this giant chain holding the ruins together. It's not all doom and gloom just yet. In fact, there are a couple of places where falling off the track doesn't necessarily mean game over, particularly in... I'm not very good at that one. The right split in the path? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. You can either hop down to a relatively plain road, it's got a small ramp, a dash panel to make you feel like you're not being left out, but the nutcases can launch into the unknown and catch this rail leading to, you guessed it, a small island! This one doesn't string together a giant combo like the bouncy clouds did, it just drops you back on the main path. Which has plenty of rails accessible from ground level to just do whatever you want. One rail off to the right leads up onto one last tiny island with some spare item boxes and a boost ramp, whereas the main route below spits you onto two more bouncy as hell clouds, and look at their faces, they just love to be bounced upon. All leading to one final U-turn, again pretty sharp, quite like myself when I hit up the discotheque, with your typical grass cut with some more crates. What is it with all the crates in this game? It looks really dodgy, I didn't think this was that kind of island, and a final glide back up to the finish line. So clean! This is evidently one of those ones that they just went, yeah, wouldn't it be funny if we made a course out of the big box in the sky? And they churned out one of the most visually stunning, adventurous feeling tracks out there. Why isn't it higher? When playing this course, it's a blast, a hell of a time. But when I think of the tracks all together, I am quite likely to miss this one out at first. Like, it's really, really good, but I don't think it's one of World's defining courses. Unlike DK Spaceport, the best example of shapes don't mean shit. I'm a big maps guy, we all know that by now, so 6 perpendicular lines, yeah, they probably shouldn't do it for me. But I think that's why it works. It's the first of its kind, it's the baby park of this game. If a load of others try doing this later down the line, then sure, maybe this course becomes slightly obsolete. But right now, it's the only one of it. And immediately with the colours, you can tell this is something different. Whereas Ruin stood out with its magnificent realism of a wacky concept, DK Spaceport intentionally looks as artificial as possible. Rich blues and contrasting oranges, yellows, reds, all blocky primaries, it really helps it stand out in my mind. The course opens with 2 ramps alternating sides of a straightaway with an immediate split turn, one platform taking you higher, and for a Mushroom Cup track is hell of a thin. I remember falling off this quite a few times on my first playthrough. Both converge and turn into a glide towards the course's big bad, Robo DK. Okay, how many Mario Kart tracks can you think of that actually have a boss throughout? None! Literally none, and it's really cool. We get ample time to see him roar and jump back, climbing the same course we're going to have to in just a bit. There are 2 floating platforms that move side to side before turning into the main event. It's girders galore down here, folks, and I should mention every section from here on is closed in with grindable rails on top of each wall. We wouldn't want anyone falling off a Mush Cup track now, would we? A small ramp brings us to section 2. This one's all about barrels, as we'll learn most are. First, we've got a quadrat of barrel cannons spitting rows and rows of giant wooden cylinders our way, and to compensate, a few lines of bounce pads to spring you over the top of them. A nice small test of concentration. After all, if a barrel's rolling right over one of the pads, you're gonna want to stay low and weave around them. There's also another floating platform, this one's stationary, how kind of it, with plenty of coins as a reward for facing the challenge. At the end of each section is a U-turn with a nice off-road shortcut for some last-second comebacks too, and later into the course some fire snakes hopping about. I do love a good I do hate a good reference. Part 3 is all about sideways barrels. Yes, very different, just as different as my twin brother here, Dragoneel, but with green bits. This section has a constant slew of barrels rolling to the left and right with desirable ramps to want to take for a speed boost, but the raised bumps being situated right next to the barrel dispensers. Very simple and yet still effective. Section 4 is my personal favourite. It's got a beautifully symmetrical lattice of rails which have to be flipped between as to not fall down below. But even if you do, there's nothing to fear since you can soon find some ramps back up top. There are just no coins down here as a small smack on the wrist for not paying attention. On the contrary, Section 5 is my least personal favourite. It's gonna teach you all about the wall riding mechanic with very little else. It's just walls. You want to try jumping to a different wall? Go ahead. Hey, fancy a wall? Here's one. There's no penalty for falling except, I suppose, you'll be going a bit slower, but you're not going to lose sleep over it. And section number 6, the big finale, is section number 2 again. Kind of. Robo DK's back in full force. And he's chucking barrels at you, but there's no bounce pads to assist this time. You've got to really duck and dive around them. There are small little ramps to speed ahead, but you've still got to be pretty careful where you shred. Once you reach the robot ruffian, you can sneak through his legs and cross the finish line. Some courses don't have to be mind-blowing adventures to me. Sometimes they can just be a fun bit of spectacle, and that's exactly what this one is. Is it hard? No, but you do feel that sense of escalation as the track progresses, the obstacles switch up, the music builds. Having the music from sections 2 to 5 just increase by a minor third and add another instrument to the mix is superb, and the 6th section being a mad rendition of the hammer theme from the original Donkey Kong is the cherry on top. It is smashing. It feels so good to hear that tune back again. Toad's Factory, everybody rejoice, remains almost untouched from its original counterpart, because if it ain't broke, be careful, it's probably fragile now. Everything from the popping colours to that little dented square of a map, come here you, I've missed you buddy, it's all just as everyone wanted it. It's got the new bits, but it doesn't reinvent itself. It didn't need to. Even the new mechanics used aren't even really used. They're clearly just there because they kind of had to be. Like this wall ride shortcut in the opening of the factory. You go like a few meters up onto a tiny platform only to drop immediately back down with the rest of the race. The following room is exactly the same as it used to be, converting brick blocks to item boxes, speeding you up or slowing you down depending on where you drive. I don't need to explain this room to you, you've played these games. The next bit puts some rails on the sides, or well, it doesn't put them there, it just makes them grindable now and adds a little flick to flick off the end of them to a little bit of an unfortunate change. In the original version of the track, these conveyors fed crates and item boxes along them. Now they just hold item boxes and coins. The whole point of the Wii one was to be a little bit of a nuisance. You either get an item or you get a smack. In this one, it's either you get an item or you get an item. Yeah, chances are you could try harder to go for a moving box and still have the same outcome. Slightly ridiculous shortcut in Bound 2, as if you grind along the rails on this section, hopping between them as you go, and if the final platform on this straightaway lines up for you by sheer chance, you can ride up to this raised platform and get another grind right in the center of the track anyway. Usually the rails are used to help cut corners, making them rewarding to get a hold of, so it seems kind of out of character to have you take a complete gamble to even get here, just for it to take you exactly where the rest of the pack are anyway. Below on this U-turn, you used to be able to fall off the inside edge if you turned too tightly, but they've walled it off now. Didn't even notice. And I'd be genuinely surprised if you did either. We all know how the switching conveyors work here again. I will also say, I miss when the music used to loop when you exited the building. That always felt really grand, and we get, I think, the best addition to this course, and it's such an unimportant one at that. It's these two cranes holding a couple of metal beams, perfectly lined up to aim at from the dash panel ramp and trick between them, slightly cutting off the turn with the bumps below, with, I might note, the water beside it being swapped out for some off-road mud. I don't know, something about this one just hits the right spot to me. It's not even particularly difficult to master, it's just neat. There are now rails on top of the bulldozer's blades? Okay, I'm learning bulldozer anatomy. I never knew that bit was called that. Sounds cool. And the edges of the blades are now trickable. All of this almost defeats the purpose of the mud, but I don't care. I'm the options guy. I love options. Upon analysing, there are actually much more things changed to this course than I realise, and not even always changes for the better. But they are by far changes for the worse. The course is still Toad's bloody factory. Must have been a bad workplace accident. It's hard to go wrong when the original was so on point to begin with, and since this one cracks the top 10, it clearly didn't stray too far from the path. Unlike... That's the second time I've entered a segment with the word unlike now. Give me 2 nickels, it's weird that it happened twice. See, Dino Dino Jungle Senior... it's fine to me. I was never huge on it. I think in the GameCube's track selection, it's cool, but it was just kind of bleak as well. It all took place around these canyons, caves and whatnot, which isn't even to say I don't like the prehistoric nature of the track. I think something like Fossil Falls from Super Mario Odyssey is one of my favourite areas in that game visually. So when Mario Kart World flipped the script and decided to take an unnamed action movie approach to avoid copyright infringement, I was a big fan. And I think I might have been in the minority of that. I've seen a lot of discourse over the decision to take the course down a slightly more technologically advanced route. I just don't buy any of it. I think taking the main cave and turning it into this abandoned laboratory is sick. Tell you what else is sick. Actually having dinosaurs. The old jungle has a whopping that you could actually interact with. Wow, that's terrible. This time around, that one dino has been replaced with a Triceratops, the same from the battle mode, whose skull you can drive up for a speedy old boost. Bathing in the lake with the split paths is this plesiosaur type of geese you can rail ride up the back of. I feel we may be witnessing peak. During the second lap, the Triceratops has pissed off and a Brachiosaurus has taken his place, giving us the classic Dino Dino experience. Love that they were able to blend both new and old together like this. And later in the lab, a T-Rex bursts through the wall. Yeah, this course definitely discovered that its name should probably be important. Those are a hell of a lot of Dino Dinos. Even later, one will join the parade out at the start of the lap. They are always switching things up, and I am here for it. Most of the track itself remains the same, with the ever-present rails we're all used to at this point, so let's knock at the laboratory to see what kind of renovations went on there. It begins quite a lot like Toad's factory actually, with a left-hand wall ride up to a higher level. This one though doesn't just last for a platform as small as Bowser's Chode. Instead, it leads up to a whole path running alongside the main road, out of the way from any potential dino attacks, and by potential I of course mean inevitable, equipped with dash panels and a ramp to shoot off over said attacker. Pairs nicely with this off-road shortcut along what was once an endless chasm, now filled in and overgrown as a little grazing spot for a friendly Tricey. It skips one giant ass turn. It might be one of the biggest intentional shortcuts I can think of. The lab aspect of the course continues outside onto this little bridge, the fences all around the sides of the track. I really don't see how people can't be a fan of this. This is like hating the invention of shoes. Like, this feels essential to the course already. Can't imagine life without it. Amazing upgrade. I don't know why everyone used to hate Wario Stadium. Yeah, I've played the game thanks to NSO, and what the hell is wrong with y'all? Conversation for another time, but basically, I was one of those who always yearned for it to get remade properly. So when it finally happened and people started to notice the drastic layout change, they wept with joy. Oh, what did I do? The course I wanted to get remade got remade. What do you think? I was just happy Nintendo didn't forget it exists. Because yes, while it lacks as much intricacy as it could have kept with the original map, it absolutely makes up for it in variety. First, the classic world move of throwing plenty of dips and bumps in the ground to serve up plenty of trick opportunities, made particularly useful in this instance with the fences all around the track. Just about every single wall that cages you in can and will be ridden upon. By trekking off the track into a wall ride, you can completely change the course and the path you take. On top of that, look at the walls of this place! Wario's Galleon, this is how you theme a Wario course. They're like a double entendre, without being, like, sexual. They're a nod to the, let's face it, pretty rough looking blue Wario faces plastered all over Mario Kart 64's course, while also being a fun Easter egg to the fella's WarioWare appearance. Awesome! Anyway, the next area has you jumping over ramps and buses, which not only adds to the very clearly stuntman vibe this redesign goes for, but also the slapped-together nature of the track. Wario's a cheapskate. Of course he just grabbed some lost vehicles from the road outside and said, yeah, suppose that'll do. With the games having introduced the trick system long ago at this point, the section with all the small hills patched over with metal ramps is a blast now, and it leads to my favourite part. These two split ramps, one slightly higher than the other, can lead you right to a lovely suspended wall that, if ridden right to the top, can tightly pull you around this next turn. Again, it's like with the crane shortcut from Toad's Factory. It's not hugely impressive, but God does it feel clean to pull off. If you take the further ramp though, there's some tyres on some off-road to let you snag a mini mushroom, but not a mini mushroom boost, as in a boost with a small mushroom boost. How about, let's say that, I've lost it now. Then up to the thumbnail star itself, the Big W in all its flaming glory, made to resemble the boss man's face with his nose, mustache, and
Why are they so haunting?
eldritch horror aside, you do a giant leap through the flames and slide left to a soft U-turn with a classic dirt cut. A couple of tricks and that's a lap. It's just a great remake, unfaithful or not. And what do you expect? It's the Wario. Blood doesn't make bad courses. Shut up. If you've seen this video of mine, you know how much I love to glaze Shy Guy Bazaar. So let me do it again! This is another one of those that was just gagging to come into this game's course lineup. The town and all its market stalls were a nice obstacle in the original. You could trick on them in the reverse variant in Mario Kart Tour. It's the perfect evolution to have them part of the track proper in World. They've got all these new ropes connecting them, which opens up so much diversity in how to maneuver the section. You can get to them from the wooden overhanging platform, which has a separate grind rail leading over to the first rope, or you can grind on the rail to the left, hopping into a short wall ride to jump onto one of the stalls from there. It's so good! There's a ridiculous shortcut right at the very beginning that, I'll hold my hands up and admit, I cannot securely reach most of the time. You've got to cut off-road onto this rail and hop right onto a pair of parallel ropes. The timing has to be pretty spot on to make it, because below counts as out of bounds, but seeing what the cut allows you to skip, that is a more than fair risk with a great consequence for taking it. Because like a lot of the more urban-based courses, you can drive on the rooftops, and my god do they let you skip a whole lot of the bazaar. A lot of walls, if ridden to the grind, can get you up to other layers to avoid items and turn tighter corners, and you'll love to see it. Another example of the course just being tailored expertly to fit this game is the straight just leading up to the gliding section. There's a small wooden ramp on the left that can be tricked up to a rail and a rope, already letting you choose a couple ways to begin this last dash, but then once we jump up the first ramp, the track doubles in width. There's a separated path along the left that cuts off and transitions you to two parallel grindable ropes, like there are any other kinds, that you can obviously switch up on as much as you need, very helpful to avoid items that eventually angle you back to the main center path with a boost ramp. The right has a slightly raised path, best accessed from the lines you could have taken from the small ramp just before that, once again, cuts off about halfway along, this time forcing a wall ride if you want to continue with its services, which we of course very much do. The wall and by extension the rail on the tippy top of it again send you back to the middle, which is a little bit of a shame. I think it would have been cool if at least one of these sidelines gave you a different way to initiate the glide, like a ring at the end of the rail, or perhaps the other side could have kept you on the ground with a short series of extra platforms. Another thing about this course is sadly the sky. We all know one of the big reasons Shy Guy Bazaar stood out so well was because of its distinct indigo aesthetic. In the game where all the courses across the world share the same day-night cycle though, yeah, half the time you're going to be driving on this thing in the baking sun, which does let the colours pop, but it's not what I want. Of course, the nighttime version is still available half the time, but it's missing that deep blue touch. Wild. This is the most I've complained about a course in ages. That's to spice things up. I've been glazing these lot too much. I've got to keep you folks on your toes. Hey, isn't this the exact point in the video you realise certain tracks have made it way too far up the list? Yes, actually. Sky High Sundae is an absolute delight in this version. First and foremost, this looks delicious. Best looking food course we've had thus far. Beats out Sweet Sweet Canyon, and that's impressive. That's a tasty looking continent. Okay, so the first times we played this course, it was an immediate glide from the starting line, with the choice to try and aim for this ice cream glory hole. Not much else going on. Now though, shit. Rails in the rail game? It takes you to this whole new bit made for this game with a couple of iced ice lollies with some ice cream sandwiches stuck into them to wall ride if you feel inclined. The rails on the tops can't be ground upon to my dismay, but you don't even need to try all that. If you switch rails as it reaches the lolly, you can weave around the giant ice cream to where the glide takes you, not to mention the rails up high on the left side of the chasm. Okay, so we're approximately 6 seconds into the course and I love it, I don't know about you. Going on to a set of wafer stairs with a rail in the middle of them that you can grind down. Huh, wow, would you look at that? Imagine putting a rail in your game you can actually use. What was originally just the stair thing again has been re-envisioned as multiple path motorway, standard wafer road with a small off-road chocolate shortcut just on the left, but a big iced ramp going up the right with a rail stopping you from falling off the outer edge and letting you grind. Thing is though, you want to take a rail on the other side at the end of the ramp to put you a little bit ahead of the next big turn. Little bit of choice to be made there. There's another rail embedded into the middle of the road and some more chocolate on the inside to cut before the wafer narrows down and sends you flying into paradise. So the road splits off onto two ice cream paths like it used to, but over the hills and far away. It's ice cream, isn't it? A load of iced ice lollies. It sounds weird to specify that again, but I gotta make sure you know the ice cream is in fact sat on ice lollies. They replaced the weird glass platforms from the original. Finally, I genuinely never understood why there was glass on the food-based course. The wafers have been removed, which would be a bit of a shame, especially with the track no longer being in anti-gravity since it doesn't exist anymore, but that's made up for with the absolute shed load of new options. You can go inward to either disperse again or take a mushroom / lob a shell at these crates to access a hidden dash panel behind them. You can hop off the outer edge of the track to wall ride along these ice cream sandwiches or grind along, but do I even need to point that out by now? And you can even find a little bit of a secret. If you're unfortunately knocked down below the course, you might be more fortunate than you think. There's a hidden platform down here with a glide ramp at the end to get you back up into the race, of which you might even finish by using the inner wall of the final turn. Now you might think, alright, that's fine and all, maybe a bit of fun, but like, does it really deserve being 6th place? Yes! Yes, it does, you fools! This is the shit I crave in these games. A simple enough track, but with plenty of different routes to take, things to explore, and also food! I'm a greedy boy, alright? If there's a food course, it's gonna stand out to me. I just find those things very disarming. Give me all your money! Okay, you silly little ice cream man. Here, have my keys while you're at it. Oh crazy, Dragoneel likes courses with lots of bits and bobs coming off them and many fun secrets to uncover. I wonder if he likes Dry Bones Burnout. Yeah I do. What a delightful package this one is. Where do I even begin here? Probably at the beginning, yeah, very good. Problem is, so many of the unique paths and routes overlap each other so much, I'd be better off just showing you an entire race, because trying to put it into words... See, I can't do it, it's really hard. Isn't it crazy how we haven't gotten an original lava-type track that isn't a Bowser's Castle since 2008? Wild. And a whole new theme on top of that with the Dia de los Muertos-esque aesthetic, with all these blossoms falling down, the gorgeous painted patterning along all sorts of parts of the track, the bunting and the banners, the candles. This is genuinely a beautiful course, not just in track, but in representation. It's a really nice touch. Alright, let's try our best to go through this chronologically. We immediately have the perfect expansion of the drivable lava. There are so many cuts to be taken with mushrooms, especially in the opening with this snaking metal grate. Flash bomb!
Split path! Choose!
Yeah, literally instantly, you're forced to be like, ah shit, okay, I'll take that one. Taking the right ramp upwards leads to a connecting jump onto, hang on, but where did that come from? Question for another time, I'm sure I'll figure it out. The regular road joins in the fun here too, and we get a classic case of winding around each other. You can do the age-old drop onto each platform from the other, sometimes accidentally, and that's okay. It doesn't matter if you're bad at the game, this is the land of second chances. Land of third chances? Yeah, alright, we can accommodate those too. There's a little while where you have to hold your own, but once the uppermost path splits in half, there's even more places to fall off, just like your favourite YouTubers, so it makes sense to give another level to the safety net. Falling all this way down should be punishment enough. A litter of ramps help ramp up the tension, pardon the humour, until the top three paths drop you onto a large bone slab, and both the upper and lower send you gliding towards... giant corpse. Right, I love an unknown creature. What is this godzillion dry bones looking thing? I'll tell you what it is, it's my kind of party. The bottom road sends you into its jaw, while the upper bone road sends you through the eye socket of the skull. Topside, once again, has a pair of bone roads with walls on either outer edge. We know what walls mean. Grind rails! They got some gaps here and there, so it's not all easy breezy. You do have to put in the work to stay on them. Gotta put in the hours, take what's ours. Rock reference? Sure, only like 5 years too late. Underneath, there's plenty of off-road, like quite an absurd amount really, and if you feel like you've been robbed of your chance to play with the big boys upstairs, then it's time to call the cops. 999, what's your emergency?
Oh, no, sorry, it's fine now, I found some rope.
Ayo! Rails to get back on the grind. Back up top, the versatility of these things, this course in general is bloody fantastic! And then, one of the best endings to a track, very reminiscent of a section from Great Question Block Ruins to me, because we're at 3 layers to the road now, where from the top layer, you can wall ride all the way up this bone to hop across to the other side for a snug spot out of the way of everyone else, and an easy glide to the finish. The middle path can have you wall ride just below on the wall and lines you up for this tiny bit of rope to grind over a rock. Seems like such an inconsequential cut, but it makes all the difference. And lastly, from the bottom, you can take a large dash cut across this pool of lava. Both this and the middle level into the rock cut lead you to a few bumps in the open to the finish, but if you trick into a wall ride against the right-hand side, then you'll hit a floating ring to glide through to an upper level of the finish line itself, leading to the very first bit you noticed a whole lap ago. Damn it, this one's good! Which you lot already knew. Look at those guys go. I love a secret you can only discover from your second lap. Once again, I love the theming. Peach Beach, are we getting divorced? Or are you open to a little something something with D-double-B over here? Because my god, that was one hell of a course. Cooler if it had a train though. Whoa! A train! And I'm not even a big train guy. Whistle Stop Summit. A treat for any Western fan, of which I do like to dabble, a joy for train lovers, and a... something else for someone else. I don't know. The rule of 3 doesn't always work. Rule of 2, on the other hand, get it down the mines. That was the first association of work that came to mind. Please don't judge my character on that. There are 2 instant choices to make. Main road or thin road. The main road, standard path with a grind rail and some grass. Yawn, I've seen more exciting things at the unexciting things shop. Alternatively, the train tracks? Whoa! It's like I'm the train. Conservatives hate to see a tradesperson coming, but to hell with them. Look how cool this shit is. It literally forces you onto a rail ride. Hello, perfect tutorial just called. There's even an additional rail on the outside to experiment. If you're wondering why I'm praising the mechanics, literally all of these courses, almost all of them, have been using so far, this is like the third course in the game. You're still getting shown the ropes here, and this is a hell of a rope display to observe. The tracks quickly overlap with the main road to lead you into... Not always a huge fan of bridges, as evident from earlier, and I've previously used this specific bridge as an example of second screen type entertainment, literally just something for you to do in amongst this sea of an empty section. But it is kind of a perfect muck about and find out kind of section. There are no less than 6 grindable rails along this one strip of track that don't have any worries of missing or falling. Well, actually, let's not say that. But there are no necessary jumps, turns, nothing to really worry about, so you are at complete reign to just dick about and do whatever you fancy. Alright, who slipped this feather shortcut in here? We haven't had one of those in like 1,000 years. We're already coming to the end of the course. What the hell? How is it possibly that good? Well, that's because we're about to enter absolute summitma. Not one of my finest. The perfect expansion to what the start of the track taught you, the railroad and the mainal road. Wait, don't forget I said that. They're both winding along as they tend to do, but experimentation lets you discover this short rail connecting a part of the main road to the train track. Another letting you a little bit ahead onto an off-road shortcut just in case you don't have a speed boost item, plenty of coal and grass to take minor paths across. And everyone's favourite, let's face it, this is another one of those pretty easy to do intentional shortcuts, but it just makes you feel like a pro pulling it off cleanly. And that's the right rail. Hop onto another rail suspended over a pit and cut straight across to the ending. Of course, there's also the director's cut of this shortcut, including... whatever this is supposed to be. And there's one of the heartiest tunes to go along with it. The haze you hear over the flute as if the Pied Piper's rent's due for the month and he's working overtime to dodge around paying it. Those manly choir singers coming back in for a little grandeur. It all feels very adventurous, like you're on a quest. You own these parts, and that is honestly all I ever want from a Mario Kart theme. I want to feel like every meter driven is a journey, and this... it really makes me want to journey to the mysterious island. Second rock joke, let's go and bring it back. Yeah, Whistle Stop is just peak Mushroom Cup. It's a fantastic continuing tutorial of the game's mechanics, but it doesn't treat you like a baby. It knows you know how to play a Mario Kart, and it pulls out all the stops to keep you entertained. Throughout my years playing Mario Kart, there's always been one course theme I've just never really got. And it's one that every Nintendo soy boy can't help but wonder about every time a new game gets announced. Will the next desert track suck? Followed, of course, by I wonder how they'll handle the next Rainbow Road. Now, personally, I never saw the big deal. My first Mario Kart was Wii, and back then, I just didn't really like it. It was a necessity to beat the game for me. The theme never really stood out as just so mind-blowing, so when I found out it was a constant throughout the series, I always wondered, why? I mean, the first one's mid, the second one sucked, DS was my second taste of it, and there, I mean, it was fine, but it was nothing to write home about. The first Rainbow Road I really liked was Mario Kart 8's of all things. I know, have me hanged, drawn, and quartered. Because everyone's favourite Rainbow Road falls into one of two categories. They either want a tough-as-nails challenge, the course to end all courses, or they want it to be a spectacle. Mario Kart 7 does not have a difficult Rainbow Road in the slightest, and yet every cuck will go on and tell you that that's the greatest video game experience ever made. It's alright, middle of the pack. But they all said that when you find your Rainbow Road for you, you just know, something clicks in your brain. Which is exactly what happened when I saw this. Is it hard? Absolutely not. I mean, there are definitely parts where if you get too cocky, you can fall off like with Faraway's waterfall, but not hard. What it is, though, is absolutely breathtakingly stunning, extremely long, except in a good way, and a wonderful send-off from World. One of the things I love above almost everything else in this course is the ambiguity of the actual layout itself, and it's not the kind of thing you'll hear anyone bring up. What I mean is, for so much of this track, you're gliding in a pretty self-explanatory manner, just sort of going straight or slightly upwards, and for the whole time, you're in a starlit sky, you know that much. But then you get to the third, and if you ask me, best section, and hang on, we're just entering a complete void of space, there's no light out there, where have we gone? And upon gliding into the final section, you get a beautiful view of the other parts of the track, but not all of them. Like, you see this bit below where we're going, you look at the map and you associate, alright, that's where we began, just next to it should be... Huh? Maybe I'm just a terrible orienteer, but I cannot for the life of me figure out how we get from here to here to here, and that instills such a sense of wonder in me. You are at the course's complete attention. I imagine this is what it feels like to be a 3DS Rainbow Road fan, but I'm just in constant awe at the path in which I'm flown throughout. That's something people give this one a bit of flack for, actually. Just how much you glide in a dead straight line. And, like, it's true. You do a hell of a lot of that, but guys, behave. Look at this! This is a sheer marvel of game design. You're really gonna sit there and tell me that passing over some triple C thick clouds and revealing this tapestry of rivers and iridescent mountainous crystals isn't just delightful? Or seeing this awesome looking space station getting closer and closer and realizing, heave, holy moly! That is a ridiculously sized machine. I'm about to be like an ant walking along Zeus's boot. Yes, it's all spectacle for spectacle's sake. So? It's the last course in the game. Why wouldn't it be doing all in its power to please your pupils? And just because it lies on a bit of the easier side doesn't mean that the track ain't fun. There are plenty of lumps and bumps in the road to fly off of, all sorts of twists and turns to scratch that multiple path itch, even a little throwback to 8s with this switcheroo. Yeah, you know what I mean. There is very little of the new mechanics like the grinding and wall riding, which is a shame, but they make up for it with the water. We like the water, right, guys? Yeah, this is the low point of the course, anyone can see that, but it still looks amazing. Emphasis on the still. We're not being forced along by any riptides, no waves throwing you about. It's supposed to be a calm before the storm, or the calm before the station. Easily the highlight here for me. I kind of really dug the techie vibe for 8's Rainbow Road, and fetch me a spade because here, I'll be just as digging. It's definitely assisted by having the best music out of all of the sections. If I could just switch off for a minute and let you hear the whole track, I would. But of course I couldn't just do that, so I suppose I'll have to settle for talking about how much I love the design of this part. You have these twin turns that sort of overlap each other. Now, if you remember back to any other instance of these in the game, you know that the outer path always actually ends up turning you in sharper, but it throws a little hammer into the works by actually splitting you off onto a different track depending which side you take. There's still a choice on which way you go from one of the sides, but either way, you're going to be dealing with robotic, angular turns, jumps, and the age-old rainbow classics. Some thwomps. Pretty incredible that outside of Kamek's wizardry, this is their only appearance in the game, making them a nice surprise and a shocking surprise when you realise, uh-oh, I've actually got to watch out for these things all of a sudden. Almost the entire race, your wheels are lit up like they are on the third act of Bowser's Castle, adds another fat layer of excitement to the whole thing. You get elements of the Mario Kart World title theme in the music, the whistle-stop train flies along, carrying all sorts of creatures and characters you've encountered on your playthrough. It's going to take a lot for a Rainbow Road to ever beat this one in terms of pure enjoyment for me. It's got everything I could possibly want. It's in sections, it's cinematic, it's got variety, it's peak game finisher. But it doesn't have bees. How? How does Acorn Heights possibly, in any world, achieve more than Rainbow Road? I'd love to tell / underwhelm you. RR brought together the perfect vision of that course archetype, but that's just it. Rainbow Roads as a concept was something I never gave much thought to, so while I was like, yeah, of course this is how it was always meant to be, I can't say I'd always yearned for it. On the other hand, an open course design is something that I always dream of for a new Mario Kart, and it's something that rarely ever comes true. Now, the everyman amongst you might call out, are you nuts? Didn't you literally just praise things like Whistle Stop, Dry Bones, and Sky High for having open layouts? And no, actually I didn't. Go back and listen to my exact words. I never actually called those courses open. Please don't do that. I'm being all macho. You will undoubtedly prove me wrong. Those all had branching paths giving you plenty of options and choice. Yes, correct. Bingo, 2 little ducks. But as early as I can remember coming up with my own little drawings of custom tracks as a wee lad, I've always wanted one track, one that everyone has to drive on, but with a Bowser's subload of shit to do in it. Think of it this way, what's more exciting? The second court of Coconut Mall with the fountain and the dash panels, the palm trees and the pillars, or the part afterwards where the pack gets split in half and it's not as fun because now only 50% of the race is happening around you. Racing in this game is so much more entertaining and hectic when there are constant people just flying all around you, whipping overhead, side-striking you because your paths have crossed at the wrong time. That, to me, is so much more engaging. Enter the trench. Yes, these 2 massive mud walls have all 24 of you packed tightly together, but then look at all this gold! Gigantic leaves to drive over, or under actually, if you've got a mushroom, mushrooms to bounce across, stems of plants to grind up. This is an absolute perfect section. The amount of ways you can get from A to B is astounding, and the more you try, the more you'll find other combinations for navigating this thing. The village at the opening will have to be the low point. I mean, how many of you even remembered it was a village at all? But the dash panels along this rather thin tunnel do give it that Special Cup feel, both with the mad speed you get and also, well, technically the mad speed as well. It can overwhelm your controls and slam you into a couple of walls. And of course, the other grand design, which I don't think is quite the magnum opus that the trench section is, but it's still great, and that's the root of the tree. A lot wider than the previous, and by definition, a lot more open. There are plenty more of those plants to ride along, a nice few bumps in the road for tricks, and these acorns that roll their way down at you. Thank God for a moment I thought it wasn't going to live up to the name! They're not all that huge, probably a rough couple times the size of you and your vehicle, but they do a dang good job at just annoying you sometimes. Because of the asymmetry of an acorn, they can and will change directions on the fly while rolling towards you, and there are quite a lot of instances where they catch me off guard. There's a hell of a lot of grass too, perfect for taking a last minute golden dash mushroom all the way across. I hate bagging, but when there's a potential for a shortcut that's a really good potential for a shortcut, I'm gonna praise the good potential for a shortcut. Acorn Heights is just pure good Mario Kart. Not the purest, I'll get there, but it is on the level of what I personally want in an open bit of course design. Like, you don't want these every single track, but you want at least a few of them every game. Which leads me to the grandest of finales, the pinnacle of Mario Kart World, and the one I deem to be the perfect track. Peach Stadium feels ripped straight out of any other Mario Kart game, and that is one hell of a compliment. After a whole game of fancy gimmicks and expansive courses, it felt so incredibly refreshing to finally stumble across an actual racetrack instead of, say, a world that you happen to be racing on. As much as I love the games trying new things, you just can't beat a classic track to zoom around. I might have mentioned that my favourite game in the series is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I can't remember, this video is so long, and this course feels just like those ones did. No shortcuts here feel accidental, like some sweaty nerd online figured out how to crack the system. Everything here is deliberate, calculated, risky, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I love that it caps off the Shell Cup. From the very beginning, this track is out to get you. It wants to just mess up your run. Look at these rails, they lead absolutely nowhere. They're short and they're useless. I think that's an amazing choice, especially for the penultimate course. I like that little bit of wizardry. I mean, one of them leads you right onto a fat patch of off-road. Of which, this shortcut is banging. It's very wide, and on one side, a single mushroom will get you across. However, there are a few pipes in the way, so you're gonna have to thread a bit of a needle betwixt them. On the other side, the grass is clear, but it's far wider. It could take at least 2 mushrooms for it to work. Suppose you could combine a shroom with the rail to create a hell of a shortcut package, but again, there's a downside to that one, as you'll have a harder time getting on the rail from the set of item boxes before it. It's all very, you know? Hey, imagine if you took that speedy section from Acorn Heights and bumped it up to 11. Sounds scary, right? It's terrifying! Thought knocking into walls was rough? Try knocking into a trip to the hospital. Few guardrails here, much narrower than 'twas there. God, the course is so regal, it's got me using 'twas. These dashes will undoubtedly send you over the edge. Next shortcut is so good. Call me a broken record, but it's another that is entirely intentional by the game devs, but there's a whole load of risk by taking it. So from this dash ramp, you take a fairly blind jump into the sky to land on this rail, which is at least a little wider than most, so you can land it more often than not. It puts you onto a nice shelter over the track below, but if you decide to try and trick off of the rail for speed, you might fall through this gap in the floor. That's very rude, I love that. You of course hop from the shelter to the central castle spire, which isn't on its own a challenge, but then again, tricking from that onto the rail that lets you take that tight-ass turn, that one's risky. It is not wide and accommodating. Unlike your mum! So there's a very high chance you just fling yourself to the afterlife instead. If you hadn't taken this shortcut, there's another alternative option on the outer edge of the turn through a rail ride that lets you glide along the last section of the course, a fresh alternative to the barrage of pipes you'll have to dodge otherwise. They're wonderfully placed right in the middle of the road to batter your skull, but in a playful way, don't worry. Even along the shortcut again, just like the first time, a good little choice with how many mushrooms you want to spend. These are trying times in the gang life. It just elicits all kinds of joy for me. It is the purest Mario Kart course in this game. It might not use all of the features, but Toad Harbor's the only one from 8 not to have a glider, and like, that's one of the best from those courses. And if anyone has any objections, sucks to be you, I don't know. And those are all of my opinions on all of the courses in Mario Kart World. Isn't that crazy? We're only so long into your time. Contrary to what I said at the start, the game has grown on me a lot more over its time on shelves. I'm very glad I never did an initial ranking like everyone else did after a whole, 5 hours on the game, because I feel like these are my truest takes. I've had plenty of time to assess and compare them all with their predecessors and whatnot. So, if you disagree with me, which no doubt you will in some areas, do let me know. You all know how much I love a good yap down in ye olde comments. And with all that, I take my leave. Cheers for making it all the way to the end. What a behemoth of a video. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm just on as background noise at this point, and one that I probably should have started a lot sooner than I did. It wasn't actually on the docket, at all. I just saw that the 1-year anniversary of Mario Kart World was coming up, and I thought that would be a really fun little tie-in. I really wanted this to come out on the week of the 5th of June. I'm almost a couple months late by this point. Just a critical point from myself here. I realized I was falling into a bit of a pattern within the top 10 of just sort of explaining every course literally second by second. And while I do enjoy taking that analytical approach, literally nitpicking every square inch of the track, it is very just sort of, I don't know, I know this is obviously scripted, but it comes across a lot more scripted. So that's why it seems like maybe I was talking a bit less about the ones closer down, like the top sort of 3-4. But that's a point many people might not have even noticed, so hey, what the hell. I think I said at the end of my last video in this little segment that I do plan to take just a little bit more time away than I usually would, just to go work on some other stuff that I fancy doing a lot, and I've had it on the back burner for a couple years, stuff completely unrelated to this channel. So do not worry if I disappear. I haven't retired this channel, I am just doing a couple other little fun bits here and there instead. And with that, thank you everyone so much for watching. It means a lot. I will carry on with the weekly posts and stuff because I genuinely love talking to people about, like, this nerdy shit that we all come here to watch. So please do just stop by at the Grotto every now and then, have a little yap, and, of course, more than anything, why don't you stay sparkling?